Discover the incredible transformation. How an unexpected love changed everything forever. Sara bustled around the diner, her feet aching and her heart heavy. Every table buzzed with chatter, forks clinking against plates, while she navigated the narrow aisles, weaving between customers. The smell of greasy burgers and fresh coffee lingered in the air like a comforting hug. But beneath it all, Sara felt the weight of her reality rent due, bills piling up, and her son Jamie's wide eyes full of unspoken questions. She longed for a better life, a brighter future for him, and she wrestled with the judgmentful gazes of neighbors who whispered when they thought she wasn't listening. It tore at her insides, each sneer, each unkind word poking at the edges of her already frayed spirit. Then one fateful afternoon, as the bell above the diner door jingled, a newcomer entered. David, a Vietnam veteran with a rugged appearance and haunted eyes that seemed to tell 1,000 stories, walked through those doors. He settled into a booth at the back, alone, but his very presence stirred something unexpected within Sara. She approached, her practiced smile betraying a flicker of curiosity. "What can I get for you?" Their eyes met, and for the first time in a long while, the world outside felt silent. They struck up a conversation that soon felt natural, as if they had known each other forever. David spoke of his struggles, his past, a quiet strength in his voice that resonated with Sara. She shared about Jamie and the dream she had for him. In their connection, Sara found warmth, a contrast to the cold judgment of her town. A bond was born, slowly, tenderly, shared through laughter and the stirring of hearts. But as their friendship blossomed, whispers started spreading like wildfire. Sara heard her friends gossiping, clucking tongues behind her back. What does she see in him? They murmured, as if David's worn exterior somehow made him less worthy of love or understanding. Even her own family scoffed at the idea, his shadows casting doubt over her choices. Each taunt drove daggers deep, wrapping her in a fabric of shame and isolation. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just when it seemed the walls would close in, a community gathering announced itself a chance for Sara to speak up. Standing in her diner, surrounded by glaring faces that had become so familiar yet so hostile, her heart pounded like a drum. This was her moment to don the armor of courage, to stand up for David. Would she bury her head in shame, or rise against the tide of prejudice that stifled their love? As she prepared to speak, a mix of fear and resolve coursed through her. A love that dared to bloom in the cracks of their judgments was worth fighting for. Could she inspire change, or would the din of disapproval drown her hopes? The air felt electric, full of unspoken worries and the possibility of something beautiful battling against the odds. The challenge loomed before her, but one question echoed in her mind. Would she find her voice, or would it forever be silenced by the doubts and fears of a closed-minded community? Sara's heart raced as she stepped up to the makeshift stage set up in the corner of the diner. She could feel the eyes of her neighbors boring into her, their skepticism thick in the air. The chatter quieted, creating a tense silence that felt almost suffocating. She could see David sitting at their usual booth, his expression calm, but his eyes reflecting the same uncertainty swirling within her. Clearing her throat, she forced herself to focus. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began, her voice wavered but firm. "I wish to talk about what really matters in this community: compassion, understanding, and love." The words sounded hollow in her own ears, but she pressed on, drawing strength from the warmth of David's smiling eyes. "I know some of you think I shouldn't be spending time with David." It felt like a lightning bolt had struck the room at the mere mention of his name. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Sara could almost feel the walls pushing in on her. Each statement she prepared in her head was suddenly vague and slippery, but she couldn't back down now. But let me tell you about the man I've come to know. She recalled the stories David had shared over cups of coffee, the bravery he displayed in the war, the losses he had incurred, and the gentle heart that struggled to find its way back home. She spoke of his kindness, how he laughed with Jamie, how they spent afternoons discussing everything from history to dreams of the future. The longer she spoke, the more fervent her words became. But love isn't just for the perfect versions of ourselves, she continued. The confidence surged through her. It's for those who have weathered storms, who have fought battles of their own. David is not just a veteran. He's a father, a friend, and a survivor. As she stood there, Sara could hear her own heartbeat, strong and sure. The fear behind her words started to wane. The faces that once reflected doubt began to soften. She took a step forward, feeling the weight of their judgment lift just a little. We all deserve a chance to heal. We all deserve love. A murmur of conversation began to sweep through the crowd, and Sara's heart soared. She scanned the faces before her, searching for a flicker of understanding. Was she getting through? Was there hope for a bridge to be built between them? But just as a few heads began to nod, a voice rang out from the back. "You can't be serious. He is a broken man." The jeer cut through her words, sharp and unforgiving. It was like ice water splashed on a warm day, drenching her spirit. The hostility came rushing back, faster than she could brace herself. Yet, as she searched the room, she noticed David's face. He looked calm but resolute, his eyes steady as they met hers. In that moment, Sara realized that she had to fight not just for them, but for her own belief in love overcoming adversity. The stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined, and yet with each moment, the spark inside her flickered stronger. Would the harsh voices drown out her plea, or could she ignite a change? With a deep breath, she held her ground, determined to finish what she had started, even as the crowd murmured and shifted uneasily. She wouldn't back down. She brought her son into this world, and she would fight for a future they both deserved. But would her courage be enough to shift the tides? And just as she prepared to deliver her closing words, another contender for the mic raised their hand, and Sara's heart skipped a beat. Who would speak next? And what would their words mean for her cause? Sara's breath hitched as she looked toward the back of the diner, where an old friend had raised their hand. It was Lucas, a familiar face from her childhood, but today he appeared different, angry and uneasy. She could feel the room shift again, the tension rising like a wave ready to crash. "What's your point, Lucas?" Sara asked, keeping her voice steady. He stood up, looking like he had just made a decision that weighed heavily on him. "There's no way you could defend a guy like him. You know what David's been through, and it doesn't change the fact that he's not the man you think he is." The murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sara's heart sank. They were right back at square one, just when she thought she had made headway. "But he has so much more than that," she countered, desperation creeping in her words. Lucas shook his head, crossing his arms. "That's the issue. You don't see the danger in getting involved with someone who has been in such darkness." The heat of embarrassment crept into Sara's cheeks. She wanted to scream and defend David, not just for him, but for all the people like him. What if he's the one that gets to choose how to live his life? That's what I'm trying to say. Love doesn't come from a perfect place. It comes from understanding. David shifted in his seat, his expression unreadable as he absorbed the weight of their history. He had never been good at standing in the limelight, but now it was his turn. One brave shout pierced through the rising tension. "Just give him a chance." It was Jamie, her little boy, standing at her side, his hand clutching hers tightly. "He plays with me. He is nice." The room went silent, shocked faces turning toward the innocent honesty of a child. Sara felt warmth spread through her, a glimmer of hope shining through the chaos. David managed a small smile, a flicker of pride lighting up his eyes. Lucas's face turned pale. "Your kid can't know what he is talking about. This is grown-up stuff," he snapped, but there was less bite in his voice now. "But he is right," Sara pushed back gently. "Kids see things clearly unclouded by fear like we are. As if hit by a wave of realization, a few people began to lean in, their faces softening. She could sense the shift, the change in the atmosphere. Was it possible? Could they start to see what she saw? Then, just as things began to feel hopeful, a shout came from the corner again. What about the town? Or us? Are we willing to take a chance on a man like him? What if he hurts her? The question hung in the air like a heavy fog, echoing her own fears. Would they ever truly accept or understand the depth of David's battle with his past? Let me answer that, David said, surprising everyone. He rose from his booth, his hands clasped in front of him. The weight of the room shifted once more, all eyes locked on him. You're right to be concerned. I have hurt people before. Sara's heart pounded as the room reacted, some gasping, others murmuring in shock. But I'm trying to heal, he continued, his voice steady as he locked eyes with Sara. I'm trying to be better, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to show you who I am now. The tension seemed to pull tighter, a moment suspended in time. It was now or never, and the crowd hung on the edge of a decision, waiting for an answer. Could they move beyond the past? And what if they couldn't? As silence flooded the space, the question lingered unspoken in all their hearts. Would they welcome David, or would fear win out? Sara's palms felt clammy as she watched David standing there, vulnerable and raw in front of everyone. The room buzzed with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, eyes darting between him and Sara, as if they were waiting for one of them to make the next move. David, Lucas finally said, voice low but steady. You think just because you say you're trying to change that we should accept you? After everything? A murmur of agreement rippled through the small gathering. Sara could see the worry etched in the faces of her neighbors, the friends who had once been so close. It broke her heart to think they might turn away from David simply out of fear. Lucas, Sara said decisively, what do you expect him to do? Hide forever? David stepped forward, holding up a hand. I don't want sympathy. I want a chance. His voice cracked slightly, revealing the weight of his plea. I made terrible mistakes, but I'm not that man anymore. What could she say? Words flicked around in Sara's mind. A million options, but none felt strong enough. That's true. I see the fear, but I also see the man trying to make things right. She turned to the crowd, pleading. Do you really want to judge him for who he was? Can't you look at him now? Can't you let him show you who he is? The atmosphere felt charged, like static building before a storm. People shifted in their seats, murmurs rising higher. Show us. A woman in the back finally called out. How can we trust you? David took a deep breath, a moment of silence enveloping him like a shield. Trust isn't given without reason. I know that. He paused, collecting himself. I'm willing to prove who I am. I'll volunteer, help the town. Let me show you through action, not words. One step at a time. Jamie tugged at Sara's sleeve, eyes wide. Mommy, can we go to the park with him? He can help make the playground better. David laughed softly, the sound lightening the tension slightly. But the laughter faded quickly as a few adults exchanged doubtful looks. I don't like this, Lucas muttered loudly, arms crossed defiantly. He's just trying to charm us because you're defending him, Sara. We shouldn't let our guard down. I don't want to charm anyone, David responded. I just want to give back to make a difference, to be part of this community. I think you all deserve that, to have someone like me try. Sara felt the world around her dissolve into a whirlpool of emotions. Doubt, pain, fear, but also the fragile touch of hope. It all coiled in her chest, making it hard to breathe. She couldn't decide if David's bravery made things better or worse. The pendulum swung between anxiousness and relief. And if he hurts you? Another voice chimed in, laced with concern. What then? The question struck Sara like a slap. She wanted to scream that love wasn't without risk, that trust took time and effort, that everyone had scars. But there was no quick answer to soothe the raw tension, no magic words to instantly heal the wound in the room. Everyone deserves a chance, including you, she finally said, looking directly at David, her heart heavy. But it has to start somewhere. As the silence thickened again, Sara felt the eyes of the town rest on her, cold and expectant. We can't ignore what he has done, but we don't have to ignore who he might become either. Just then, a voice rang out from the rear, someone she hadn't even noticed before. What if the person we're scared David might be is actually who we are afraid to become ourselves? A ripple of gasps swept through the diner. Stunned faces revealed that even the brave were influenced by the shadows lurking in their own hearts. Sara looked up, hope and uncertainty colliding. What if that voice was right? What if this was the moment of truth? As tension thickened once more, she realized they were standing on the razor's edge between acceptance and rejection. Could they find the courage to embrace the unknown? Would they step forward with David or retreat back to the past? The moment felt electric, suspended in anticipation. Would they take that leap, or would the fears that bind them all win out? The silence hung like a heavy quilt, wrapping everyone tighter in their tension. Sara's heart raced. She felt the weight of their collective hesitation surrounding her. Then, a man at the front, one who had been there through the best and worst of times, finally broke the spell. "What do you think you can do?" he asked, eyes narrowed in scrutiny. "What can one man do to change what has been done?" David squared his shoulders, determination glowing in his eyes. "I can help rebuild what I broke," he said firmly. "I'll start with the park. I'll fix the playground. I'll work shoulder to shoulder with anyone who will let me, and I'll show you how much I care through my actions." A murmur rippled through the crowd again, a mix of surprise and skepticism. The word actions seemed to resonate. It was easier to grasp than promises. At least it was a tangible place to start. "Maybe I'm the last person you want to hear this from," David continued, "but I've learned that we can't just forget the past. We need to face it head on. Every one of us has a choice, to let our past define us or to redefine our future." Jamie's small hand squeezed Sara's. "Can we let him help, please?" The look in her daughter's eyes was full of innocence, untainted by the anger or fear that the adults held. But Sara felt the weight of Jamie's hope pressing her toward a decision. Could she trust David, and more importantly, could she trust the community too as well? Lucas shifted again, his arms still crossed, but his frown had started to soften slightly. "So what is your plan?" he asked, voice steady but searching, as if willing to entertain the possibility of David's redemption. David took a breath, the fear of failing visible in his stance. "We can have a day of service, a cleanup of the park. I'd like to invite anyone who is willing to join me. I'll be there with my tools, ready to dig in. Everyone can see I mean it." He looked around, meeting eyes one by one, pulling their attention and their doubts into the fold. "I know earning trust is a long road, but I want to walk it." Uncertain murmurs filled the room, blending with a budding curiosity. Was it possible? Could they allow this man to slip into their lives again as a neighbor, a friend, or even something more? After moments that felt like hours, one woman stood up slowly. "I'll help," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I've seen what he has tried to do, and if he is taking this seriously well, I believe it's worth a shot." A ripple of reluctant applause followed, as others began to nod, hesitant but intrigued. Slowly, people stood, shaking off doubt, stepping closer to the possibility of a future that included David. Sara felt a flood of relief wash over her. She could finally breathe again. Maybe they were finally willing to see him as he was now, not as he had been. But just as hope began to blossom, someone else shouted from the back, "And what happens if we're wrong? What then?" David's expression dimmed a fraction, the shadows creeping back into his eyes. "I can't promise I'll get everything right," he said quietly, "but I can promise I won't give up. You'll see me try, day after day. If you decide to give me a chance, then we can all learn together." The energy in the room shifted, the sense of possibility flickering like a candle flame. Yet, Sara's heart thudded loud in her chest. Just as voices began to rise in encouragement, a familiar face slipped in through the door, someone she thought had left town for good. "Is David really back?" It was Claire, a shadow of distrust overshadowing her features. "You can't be serious about this. You all wanted to stay?" Sara's breath caught as Claire's words threatened to extinguish the light of hope they'd just ignited. Would this new confrontation tear them apart again? As everyone turned to face this new threat, Sara realized they were at the edge of something far more complex than she had imagined. Clara's presence felt like a weight pushing against everything they had fought to build, but perhaps also the catalyst they needed to confront deeper fears. Would the community band together, even as past scars reopened? And could David truly change enough to win them over? The air crackled with tension, and the turning page toward a new chapter felt imminent. The air thickened as Claire's voice echoed through the gathering, casting a heavy shadow that seemed to squeeze the hope out of the room. Sara watched faces around her shift from optimistic to uncertain, a ripple of doubt spreading like wildfire. David's shoulders slumped slightly, and for a split second, the walls he had started to build appeared to crumble. Doesn't anyone care about what he has done? Claire pressed, her gaze sharp and challenging. You really think he has turned over a new leaf just because he wants to fix a playground? Sara instinctively tightened her grip on Jamie's hand, feeling her heart race. She wanted to speak up, to deny the accusations swirling in the air. But the questioning stares of the others made her pause. Did Claire have a point? Lucas's frown returned as he stepped forward. It's not about forgetting, Claire. It's about moving forward. David admits he made mistakes. That matters. His voice held a tremor, a struggle between past grievances and hopeful futures. But what if this is just a performance? Claire shot back, a hint of desperation echoing in her tone. How many times have we seen people like him come back and promise the world only to leave us in ruins again? With each word, Sara saw the tension rise, her breath catching in her throat. She glanced at David. His eyes were lit with an intensity she hadn't seen before. It was raw, sincere, and it demanded a chance. Claire, David said, his voice steadying, rising above the din. I get it. I understand your fears, and they're valid. I want to brush over what I did, but I also want to allow it to dictate what I can become. I want to make right what I've wronged, even if it's just one small step at a time. There was a stillness, as if the entire room needed to take a breath, and then Sara felt the warmth of Jamie's little fingers intertwined with hers. Her daughter wasn't weighed down by past mistakes or the fog of distrust. Jamie simply looked at David, her eyes shining. Please, can we let him try? She whispered, her voice thick with pleading hope. Sara didn't respond immediately. Doubt licked at her like a flame, but as she surveyed the faces of her neighbors, she began to notice a change. Hesitance mingled with curiosity. Suddenly, one elderly gentleman nodded, clearing his throat. I know what it means to fall short. I've done things I regret too. If I can have another chance, I think others deserve that same opportunity. Whispers of agreement flitted through the crowd, sparking a flicker of fire in Sara's heart. In that moment, it was as if the shadows cast by Claire had brightened just a bit. Renewed voices of encouragement joined, shifting from doubt to questioning whether they could actually move forward together. The energy transformed, and Sara sensed momentum building. David took a step closer, addressing Claire directly now. I don't expect you to suddenly trust me, but I hope that through this effort, you will see me fight for my place again. We can do this together. I might not have all the answers, but I'll show you I'm serious. Claire faltered, her expression a mask of conflict. What had started as a rallying point became a battleground of heart versus head. And just when Sara thought things might settle into some clarity, Claire looked towards the back of the room, her expression shifting, suddenly alert. What will the town say? What will others think about us bringing him back? We're not a charity case. David's resolve didn't waver. This isn't charity, Claire. If I could do it alone, I would. But I want all of us to be part of this change, not just me. I'm here asking for a partnership, not pity. The conversation twisted unexpectedly, leaving Sara wondering if the real challenge was still ahead. Would they pave the way for a new beginning, or would they find their deepest fears come to light? As voices mingled, murmurs still palpable in the air, the horizon of possibility grew uncertain, hanging by a thread. The question tickled at the back of Sara's mind. Could they all truly heal together, or were they on the brink of another breakdown? Sara felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. As the conversations around her swirled, she could sense the mixture of hope and skepticism in the room. The elderly gentleman's words, infused with a soft but powerful wisdom, seemed to ripple through the crowd. It was a reminder that redemption, however difficult, was worth pursuing. Yet the undercurrents of doubt led her to wonder how far they could really go. "Let us be honest here," Claire interjected again, her voice a knife slicing through the growing murmur of agreement. "We can't just gloss over the past. If he stumbles even once, how can any of us be okay with that?" James, one of the younger fathers in the group, stepped forward hesitantly. "I think everyone deserves a shot. Not everyone can be perfect, and if we're looking for perfect, we're going to be waiting forever." His voice wavered, betraying his own inner conflict. He cast a quick glance at Claire before his eyes dropped to the floor, shame washing over him. David caught that look, sensing the burden in his words. "No one is asking for perfection," he replied, his tone softer now. "Just a chance. I know the shadow I cast before, but I want to fight against that. Not just for myself, but for all of you, for this community." As David spoke, Sara could see some of the tension in Claire's shoulders easing just a bit. However, the skepticism still hung like a storm cloud above, threatening to break at any moment. Maybe Claire began slowly, the fight in her voice faltering. "But that doesn't mean everyone in town will see it that way. We can show them," Jamie piped up, her small yet strong voice ringing clear through the heavy air. Everyone turned to her, the innocence of a child casting a new light on the swirling doubt. "We can have a big party to clean the playground together. Everyone can help, and then people will see he's trying." David's eyes lit up at Jamie, and in that moment, those eyes expressed gratitude that transcended mere words. "She's right," David said with newfound vigor. "If we come together as a community and show what we can do, it'll change perceptions." A murmur of interest rippled through the gathering. Sara could feel it to shift. The thought of working together, side by side, might just be the bridge they needed to unify. And what if it fails? Claire shot back, the walls of her skepticism rising once more. "It won tea," David said firmly, but without harshness. "Not if we all believe in what we are trying to do. We can all support one another. If I stumble, I want you there to catch me." Isn't that how community works? For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them. Each person processed the words, their own experiences playing out in their minds. Even Claire seemed to wrestle with her unyielding stance, caught between her fears and a flicker of hope that perhaps community could be built from love, courage, and willingness to forgive. Finally, Claire sighed, her resolve wavering. "All right, if we're going to do this, let us do it right. I'll help plan it, but just know I'm keeping my eyes open." The room stirred with a mixture of trepidation and excitement, creating a feeling so electric one could sense it in the air. Sara felt a rush of warmth surge through her. They were moving towards something greater together. As the group began to discuss ideas for the event, laughter began to replace the tension. Jamie squeezed Sara's hand. "Mom, this is going to be awesome." Yet beneath the excitement, Sara harbored a flicker of dread. What if one misstep shattered everything? Would David be able to keep his promise? And just as they plotted out the day, a commotion drew everyone's attention to the entrance. A tall figure stood there, silhouetted against the fading sunlight, and the room fell silent once more. Who is it? What do they want? The energy shifted, haunted by a new mystery. The next test for their fragile unity had just arrived. The figure at the entrance stepped forward, the light catching the contours of a familiar face. It was Mark, David's older brother. The crowd gasped, a blend of surprise and unease rippling through them. Sara's heart raced. She had heard whispers about Mark, how he had left town years ago under a cloud of failure, just like David's. What was he doing here? Someone murmured, breaking the heavy silence. Mark paused, scanning the room, and in his gaze, Sara caught a hint of vulnerability. He had always felt like the stranger in his own family, an outcast whose mistakes had left scars deeper than anyone knew. After a moment, he cleared his throat, drawing every eye toward him. "I know my history here, isn't good." He began, his voice hesitant but steady. But I want to change. I want to support my brother. Claire crossed her arms, shaking her head in disbelief. And why should we believe that? You have a past just like David. Why will we trust you after everything? Mark nodded, accepting the skepticism as if it were a badge he carried. I can't ask for forgiveness. I can only show you through my actions. I'm ready to fight for my brother now, to prove that we're not just shadows of what we once were. David stepped closer to Mark, a complex mix of emotions flickering between them. Were they allies or enemies at this moment? Sara could see the tension in David's frame, the way his fingers twitched, as if he were weighing the choice of embracing or pulling away. I believe in second chances, David finally said, and the words hung in the air, potent and heavy. If you're here to help, then we can start fresh. But Mark, it won't be easy. People want to just accept you. I know, Mark replied, his eyes glimmering with honesty. But I want to fight for our family, for my brother, for this community. The crowd shifted uneasily, some exchanging glances, while others seemed intrigued by the sincerity in Mark's tone. It was a painful reminder of the struggles they had all faced their own families, all their shared histories, the cracks and fractures that had formed under pressure. Miss Jamie tugged at her mother's sleeve, eyes wide with curiosity. Sara felt a wave of empathy wash over her. Maybe they can both find a way to make this work, she thought. Does this mean we'll get to see the playground fixed up sooner? Jamie piped up, a bright smile breaking through the tension. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and even Claire found it hard to resist the tiny spark of warmth that spread through the room. I think we could use all the hands we can get, David said slowly, glancing at Mark before returning his gaze to the others. If Mark is here to help, I think we might just have what we need to go forward. More murmurs filled the air as people began to contemplate, could two brothers who had both stumbled find redemption together? Mark's presence threatened to turn the tide of change, but it also brought uncertainty. Claire finally uncrossed her arms, her defensive stance softening, though her brows furrowed slightly. I'm still cautious, she admitted, but I can't deny that if you're serious, your efforts can make a difference. Mark met her gaze, vulnerability etched across his features. I only want to try. I know I need to earn that trust, and I'm willing to work for it. As they dove back into planning with an energized focus, Sara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The air buzzed with renewed purpose, yet concerns lingered like shadows in the corners of her mind. Could they really pull all this off? Would their fragile unity hold strong against the weight of their pasts? Just then, a loud crash from outside jolted everyone. They all turned to look out the window, where chaos seemed to erupt in the street. What now? Everyone in the room froze, a collective gasp escaping their lips. The earlier tension that had begun to thaw now felt precariously balanced on the edge of chaos. Sara rushed toward the window, her heart pounding, desperate to see what had caused the commotion. Peering through the glass, she caught sight of a group of teenagers, laughing and pushing each other, seemingly oblivious to the chaos they were causing. They had knocked over a trash can, its contents now strewn across the pavement. Sara half laughed and half sighed, relief flooding through her. Just a trivial accident, but it was a stark reminder of how quickly things could shift from hopeful to chaotic. Looks like it's just kids being kids, Claire said, rolling her eyes, her posture relaxing ever so slightly. But there was a cloud of unease still hanging over the room, the weight of past wounds resurfacing with every shift in the atmosphere. Should we check it out? David suggested, casting a glance at Mark. They all knew his presence meant they would have to navigate his past while trying to build a united front. Let us form a plan and make it a part of our community project. Mark chimed in, his voice surprisingly steady. We can show them how to take responsibility for their actions. An idea sparked again, positivity breaking through a moment of tension. The group gradually distanced themselves from the window, back to the matter at hand, but whispers of doubt still lingered in the air. What if Mark's venture into redemption failed? Could he really be trusted? Right. So where do we start? Jamie's small voice cut through, innocent and hopeful. She was the bright light in the room, innocent to the shadows hanging over her family. It was her question that reminded everyone why they were here in the first place. Mark moved closer to her. We start by fixing that playground. And if we can get those kids engaged, maybe we can form a community cleanup club. We all make mistakes, but we can learn from them together. He smiled at Jamie, and her eyes brightened with excitement. David nodded, glancing at Mark with newfound determination. Let us think about the tools and supplies we need. If we organize a community day, we can come together and tackle this project. As they began tossing around ideas, Sara felt the atmosphere grow lighter. It was a small but significant shift, as if the community's resilience was sparking back to life. But just as they seemed to be gaining momentum, a sudden crash from outside shattered the moment. Everyone rushed to the window again, hearts racing as they tried to grasp what was happening. It was no longer just kids being reckless at play. This time, a group of older teens had gotten involved, throwing stones at cars, their laughter spiraling into something more sinister. "Stop them! They could get hurt," Claire shouted, moving toward the door, her protective instincts kicking in. Sara felt a twinge of fear. Would the brothers be able to bridge the gap and lead their community through this chaos? Would Mark's efforts hold up against such chaos from the past? As they rushed outside, the stakes had suddenly risen, and Sara couldn't shake the looming question. What would it take for this fractured community to come together against today's turmoil? The situation was escalating fast, and they had to act quickly. Would they be able to form a united front in the face of rising tensions? Or would the past continue to fracture them when it mattered the most? The moment Sara stepped into the chaos outside, her heart pounded in her chest. The laughter of the teenagers echoed like a sinister reminder of how easily things spun out of control. David and Mark rushed to her side, determination etched on their faces. Together, David murmured, his voice a steady anchor. "Let us show them we care." They formed a group, moving toward the center of chaos where the shouts grew louder. Sara's pulse quickened. This was her chance not only to support David, but also to fight for the future she wanted for Jamie. "We need to set an example," she called out, her voice breaking through the noise. As they approached, the older teens tensioned up, their playful laughter turning to confusion. When David raised his hands, the sudden authority of his presence demanded attention. "Hey!" he shouted, firm yet calm. "This isn't how we build a community. Who even cares?" One teen shot back, flicking a stone into the street. Sara stepped forward, emboldened. "We care. We're here to support each other," she cried. "Every action counts. Respect matters. We all make mistakes. What if today we choose differently?" Mark chimed in. "We don't want to see anyone getting hurt, least of all you. You matter, but this isn't the way." The teens hesitated, caught off guard by the sudden influx of adults standing together. They sensed the strength of resolve, felt the weight of a community willing to confront them. An intense exchange of glances followed, doubt creeping into their expressions. Sara held her breath, praying that curiosity would replace rebellion. "Why don't you join us?" She gestured toward the playground. "Tomorrow, we're fixing it up together. It's a chance to make something beautiful. Instead of breaking things, you can help build them." The youngest among them, a boy with a skateboard, spoke up. "Why even bother? No one ever cares about what we want." David stepped in closer, lowering his voice. "Let us show you that we do care. Come help us. You'll see for yourself how your choices can shape this town." Faces softened, and murmurs of uncertainty filled the air. The tension slowly began to dissipate, replaced by tentative intrigue. "Let us just go already," one of the teens said, but he appeared less aggressive now, almost embarrassed. Jamie, brighter than ever, took a step closer, her eyes sparkling with hope. "It'll be fun. We're going to make the playground awesome." A flicker of light broke through the gloom. Sara could see the walls of resentment cracking among the teens. One by one, their resolve buckled beneath the weight of possibility. "Okay," the boy with the skateboard sighed. "You really think we could help?" "Absolutely," Mark replied, his voice warmer than ever. "You'll be part of something real. Each pair of hands counts." After a few moments, A fragile truce formed. The group of teens began to retreat, but not without casting a few glances back, curiosity blooming in their steps. A feeling of relief swept over the adults. "That was brilliant," Sara exclaimed, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We can do this together." David placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You were incredible, and so were you all," he said, turning his gaze to Mark. "This is just the beginning. We can fight this together." Mark nodded, vulnerability entwined with newfound purpose. "Tomorrow, let us put a plan into action. We'll reach out to the town, spread the word. Let everyone know what we're doing. It's time to roll up our sleeves." As they returned to the diner, the air buzzed with renewed hope and enthusiasm. People filtered back in, gathered as neighbors, as a family. Sara could feel camaraderie growing, the barriers of the past beginning to shift as they connected through shared effort and unity. "Can we really pull it off?" Claire asked doubtfully, but there was sincerity as she joined the momentum. "Yes," Jamie exclaimed, her joyful smile lighting up even the darkest doubts. And in that moment, standing side by side, Sara realized the truth. Love and community required fighting, healing, and a willingness to trust. They would stumble, but they had each other, and together they were stronger. When the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow through the diner's windows, Sara looked at the faces around her. Hope lingered in the air, palpable and alive. Today was just a step of promise to fight against old shadows and uncertainties, a gesture of love that rippled outwards. With a heart full of warmth, Sara recognized the strength in their hearts, and she knew they were on the final path to healing. There would be challenges ahead, but together they would meet each one head-on. Now, if you've felt the transformation, if you see the power of community in this journey, you need to subscribe now. Let us keep this movement alive. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread hope. Comment below your feelings about this ending, because we want to hear from you. Share instantly this message with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second, to share the love.